2, 3. Not yet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Me is 8.
Keith.
Who are we missing?
Keith.
Keith.
Oh, thank you. Takes me a minute sometimes. Oh, okay. He just texted us. He needs the link for the meeting. So if somebody could just send him that link would be great. We'll wait just a minute or two till he gets on here.
I just sent it about 5 minutes before the meeting.
Okay.
Hold on. Participants, invite, send message. Keith.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. I sent him the link,
Okay.
which should work.
Yeah. I'll tell him. Okay. All right, well, we can get started a while because we're just going to have the Pledge of Allegiance. So I welcome everyone to this virtual board workshop meeting. And if we do the Pledge of Allegiance would be great. I pledge of allegiance to the flag
of the United
The United States of America,
to the republic
to the republic for which it stands,
one
nation,
nation under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty and
liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mrs. Castle, could I have a roll call and just do Keith last if you would.
Okay. Mr. Cunningham,
Here.
Dr. Drake,
Here.
Mr. Elliott,
Here.
Mr. Hipser,
Here.
Mrs. Hopkin,
Here.
Mrs. McGinnis,
Here.
Ms. Pennypacker,
Here.
Mrs. Cunningham,
Here,
Mr. McCarrick.
not yet.
Not yet. Okay, I'll just put in the time when he enters.
Okay, that works. Okay, so first I'd be looking for an approval of the minutes of the March 25th board workshop.
I'll make a motion.
Keith's in, by the way.
I'm here.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Next, we'll move on to presentations. First, we'll have a motion to approve. Well, it won't be a motion to approve. We'll talk about policy 227, controlled substance paraphernalia to repeal and replace. And policy 233, suspension and expulsion, repeal and replace. And policy 233 AR, suspension and expulsion, repeal and replace. I'm assuming, Andrea, you're going to take that? No, Peg? Andrea?
You want me to take it, Peg?
Yep, go for it.
Okay, so ultimately, we're just going to draw your attention. These policies, actually, we have been mentioning since the fall. There's been multiple times that we have reviewed these as both the full board and the policy committee. For the policy 227, I just want to draw the board's attention upon the review that we collapsed the AR into the actual policy. So we would repeal the AR. They would stand as one document. Within that AR, the dialogue was around the consequences of a drug offense. There was some recommendation from the administration for, how many offenses or if expulsion was possible with one or more offenses. Ultimately, after several meetings, we talked about it at 3 of our policy meetings, it does specifically outline in the implementation of the policy section within 227, what those, what that language is available to the board. The language is up to and including expulsion. However, it is not required. So in the policy committee meeting, we talked at length about, should an offense drive out an immediate expulsion? That wasn't comfortable. We did get some feedback from stakeholders. And then our current policy almost made it impossible, and it was based on the quantity of the substance. So there is some discretion. But what I really want to draw the board's attention to is added to the language is not only the potential consequence for an offense, but also supportive measures. So for obvious reasons, if a child offends our drug policy, we want to support them in other ways than punitive. And so there are supportive measures outlined specifically in there, and also language around the information and how it's collected and shared with the board, considering, and the superintendent considering the consequence to that offense. A policy, the suspension and expulsion policy underwent some minor revisions. I think we came to the board and asked for feedback for the AR around how we will conduct those formal hearings. With your feedback and under the discussion of the policy committee, it would be a hearing with the full board. And Kyle, if we want to talk about there was some question about how many board members have to be present and if we could conduct it if everyone's not present, because there is a timeline to those hearings. But we would want to try to convene a hearing in front of the full board. There is also maintained some of the conversation the board has heard over time is that parents still can waive the formal hearing, which is what we called the waiver. That has had a lot of dialogue. That language is still present in there, and parents are afforded that opportunity. So I think we're happy to answer any questions if the board has any during this first read. And Peg, or Kyle, do you want to add anything to that dialogue? Okay.
No, I don't think so.
No.
Okay.
All right, great. Thank you, Dr. Farina. Next, we'll move on to item B, which is 2021-2022 budget update and report from Finance Committee, which I will turn it over to Sandy. And you're muted, I'm pretty sure. Although I can't see you.
Still muted.
There we go. Sorry, couldn't unmute there for a second. So I'm sharing my screen, I believe. Do you see the budget worksheet?
Yes.
April work. Okay. So we've met a few times with Finance Committee. Most of this year, going over revenue and expenditures. And the last two meetings, we had the expenditures in total, and then the last meeting we reduced those expenditures by about 300,000. We're still working on the budget. As you know, the state has not passed the budget yet, so the funding, the revenue for basic ed and special ed has not been determined, but we're using some estimates in our revenue projections. What I'm going to do is give you a basic overview of where we are, because the presentation will be for preliminary adoption of the final budget will be in May, and then we have until June to vote on the final budget. This is the timeline. So May 13th, the adoption of the proposed final budget, and then there'll be public notice of intent to adopt will be out in the papers by June 7th, and then the final adoption will be on June 17th, hopefully. Moving forward, I'm going to go over some of the highlights. So the staffing additions to the budget, as you know, the board approved full day K. That does have an impact financially. So in the budget, we have 3 full day kindergarten teachers proposed, 2 elementary specialists for full day K. And then for our special ed program, we need to expand the autistic program. So we have 2 autistic support teachers, 1 elementary, 1 middle school, 2 autistic support paraprofessionals to support those teachers. We'll be moving probably paras around. Usually there's 2 per class, but we can move some existing paras. An instructional coach is in the budget, and network administrator for technology. As you know, this year we're 1-to-1 district-wide. There's been a lot of additional technology that's been deployed in the district. And there's, this was in the budget last year, didn't make the cut, but it's becoming more and more important. And administrative support to support facilities and technology. Those staffing positions alone total a little over $1 million. Also, in addition to the budget, there's some additional contracted services. Obviously, transportation's being the big one. Regardless of who the vendor would be for the coming year, there would have been an increase. And the increase is significant in transportation, just because there's, the midday runs, which we didn't pay for previously, was proposed in all vendors that gave us a proposal. We're looking at additional of this 800,000, probably around a little over 600,000 additional transportation costs. Instructional substitute support is our day-to-day subs and our building subs in the district that support our professional staff. And then there's a little bit in the budget for administrative substitute temporary support. We've needed some support this year from additional needs, one being for COVID and the other for absence of an individual for a long period of time. And then facilities feasibility study. So it's been several years since we've had a feasibility study, and actually time flies. And it's time, and I know Doug would like to have this in place and what it is for planning for the future. So it will look at all our facilities and the needs moving forward. If you add those two together, those two alone, the total of staffing additions and contracted services, we're looking at $1.8 million. Later on, we go over some additions at the end. There's another significant increase that's impacting the budget, but I'll speak about that at the end. Now, pulling a couple times, we've talked about, well, what's the full day K cost? What does it take to support full day kindergarten? Well, the costs that are in the budget right now is the ones I mentioned earlier, but I outlined them here. There's 3 new elementary teachers, 2 specialists, and then there's also supplies and books and some technology supplies. And I only have a small amount for transportation because there would have been an increased cost anyway for midday. So the transportation cost figured in here is not large, but it's just an increase overall in transportation. So just for full day K, the total is $562,538. That's in the budget as we speak. Now, along with that comes some capital expenses. These are not in the budget, but they will come out of the capital projects fund to support the needs at Hereford, and there may be some at Marlboro also that's needed to support that program. And I know that's been talked about at the facilities committee besides the finance committee and the workshops and budget meetings also. Now, as far as an expenditure summary, what are we looking at for cost? As I said, we reduced the budget around 300,000 at the last finance meeting, but we're still looking at where we can possibly make some further reductions, if there are any. So right now for instruction, as you can see, instruction support services are basically 88% of your budget, which they would be. One of the larger items you see this year that we don't usually see is in the 5,000 other financing services. I'm going to cover that a little bit later on. It's not just our debt, but there's an additional item that's affecting that. But the 3,000 account is going to be your student activities and your athletics. Moving forward. This is just graphically, this is the expenditures. Of course, as you can see, instruction and support services cover almost most of the budget. Revenue to support the budget. All right, with a 0 millage increase, the fund balance needs would be $4.5 million. That's much larger than we've looked at in the past for the needs. But as you can see, there's additional costs we're incurring for the additional program and transportation and some other services has created a large need in the budget. And then this is just graphically, as you can see, the total budget revenue, including the fund balance. The maximum millage increase would reduce that fund balance need to 3.1. Still, it's more than we want as far as uses of a fund balance, but it did reduce it and help support the budget that has been, that we've discussed previously. Now, major increases. As you can see, the budget reflects a 5.67%, but we are adding all those extra services, transportation, full day K, and then those additional positions. As you can see, as we move down, retirement is always a key each year as increases. So that's 444,000. In the 2000 account or object code area, the amount isn't as great because we've been able to reduce some medical and RX costs, one through contributions that are in the current agreements. Purchase and professional and technical services, they're your support services, that's where your sub-services and so forth are. And then, of course, moving down, purchase property services, other, and then the Western Center. The Western Center had a 5% increase this year, so it reflecting for our budget is another $87,000. Now, as you can see, budgetary reserves includes charter. This is key. Our charter costs have doubled. So we need an additional $1.5 million to support the charter school costs that we're currently experiencing. That may change. That would be great. That would be a reduction in the needs in the budget. But right now, these are actual costs that we're looking at. I didn't put any leeway for any additional charter because I know we'll bring students back. What I have here is the millage calculations. I know often, and I think Mike usually asks me, so what is it if it's 1, 2, 3, and so forth, and what that would mean to the budget. So I know it's small, but I have another slide which will help. But this is just showing what the taxes would be, the amount of dollars that additional revenue that will come from real estate, and then the effect it has on the median assessment and the average assessment for Berks and Montgomery County. Now, having said that, I don't have the new median assessments and average assessments for this year yet, but they don't change very much, very little. To actually make it a little simpler to see, this is a real estate tax revenue. So a 0 increase, we need $4.5 million. And as you can see, moving down to 3.7, reduces that fund balance need to a little over $3 million. It would really be helpful if the charter school costs decreased, because that would help us significantly to support the other items that are in the budget. And just the next finance meeting is May 5th, and there's some information that we're putting together for that meeting that was discussed at the last finance meeting. But I invite anyone to ask questions and to let us know, what do you want to, if there's anything you would like to see differently, or again, I have a lot of detail. Some of that's in the finance, in the committee documents on the SharePoint, but I'm open to whatever requests there are or questions.
Does anyone have any questions? I can't see everyone, so.
Melanie, if I could just mention, Sandy, I believe it's May 3rd, correct?
Oh, I'll never get these dates right, Alan.
Yes. Yes.
I was
It's
just
my,
looking at myself.
I'm
Yeah.
just like, geez, it's been a
Yeah,
rough day.
Yes, and I apologize for not picking that up on the last glance over that. I will share, and I wanted to highlight the conversation you just had about the charter school funds that are added in there for in the event of covering students that are at charter. So earlier today, a communication went out to all families, private, parochial, charter, and our own families in person as well as virtual, to begin to get a gauge on next year. So one specifically has to do with that topic to see if we can't see any movement on that in terms of potential students that may be coming back that said, last August they said, okay, we're going to opt out, we're going to take off for this year and see when things come back, and we'll hopefully collect some information over the next week or so on that specific topic. If there's anyone that's a parent out there that's asking has questions on that information, looking into the fall, I know a lot of the feedback on the initial couple people that have replied have talked about masks. So we don't know where we're going to be at that point. So there's no answer truly on a mask mandate or not a mask mandate. So we know we're asking for preliminary information, which will help drive this. And I do want to reiterate also that with some of the ESSER money, because I know that was asked in the finance committee meeting, which is supposed to be used for learning loss as well as some other instructional pieces that may be needed for additional teacher costs and things heading into next year as we're planning, not knowing what the many challenges will be. So that's, I think, part of that thought process as well.
Anyone have any questions?
I had a question or two, if other
Go ahead.
people have questions, I'll let them go first because I have a couple.
Go ahead, Carrie.
What's our current fund balance regular and in capital? What is that currently this year?
Okay, I was going to provide that at the next meeting. I can get that for you. I don't have it at my fingertips, but
Okay.
fund balance and capital. Yes. I was going to go over that in May as far as where we are and then what our capital is. The Giza's, let's put this way, taxing right now.
Okay.
So that's going to
fine.
be an additional cost. So.
Okay. How much did we transfer into capital or general fund balance from last year to this year?
We transferred a little over $5 million.
5 million.
Yes. And that's been a real help to support that capital fund to support the Giza project.
Okay. Do you remember what your predicted deficit was from last year? How much, when you first did the budget, what the predicted
The
deficit was?
beginning, I think it was about 2 million, but of course COVID hit and everything changed.
So I have written down $4,006,829 predicted deficit.
Oh, you
And
mean
what I
at the end of the year when we said before? You
Predicted
didn't mean when we did the budget. You mean at near the end when we predicted the amount for June? Is that what you're referring to?
Yes. When you
Okay.
predicted how short we were going to be was minus 4 million.
We were going to be over 4 million. The prediction was that we would have an excess dollars because of COVID.
No, what I'm talking about is when we first do our budget, you come up with a prediction that says we're going to be X million dollars below revenue income, which would
Okay,
be a
that's in
deficit.
the very beginning of the year, but when we
Yes.
passed the budget, that was reduced.
Mhm. But we're now in the beginning of this year or the middle of this year predicting for next year, right?
Correct, but by the time
Okay.
June comes, it's usually has been less.
Yeah.
It's just that, right, when we first
Mhm.
go in it, before we know what the tax increase is, it is predicted to be higher. Just as
Mhm.
when we started in beginning of this, we were at 4.9 million
Mhm.
with no increase. So,
Okay.
and then it goes down.
Yeah.
And by June, it was lower than that.
Sorry for all these questions. I'm sort
It's
of
okay.
a math guy. So,
Yep, no
Um,
problem.
so anyway, what I have last year is we had predicted a $4 million deficit, but we had a 5 million surplus. So that's a swing at $9 million.
Carrie,
also have-
Can I interrupt you real quick? I think it was about 1.6 at the end of budget, when we finalized the budget.
Right, that was before we finalized the budget.
Okay, I knew it was around there somewhere.
So
And-
anyway, the takeaway is I started keeping track of these things and I talked to Dr. Roche about this. So what I've seen over the last 7 years I've been on the board is we predict an average of $2 million of deficit, but then we end with about $3 million of surplus, which is a swing of $5 million average. So to me, this looks like what we typically see. I know there's some extra charges, but there's also some other things that, we had a little less payout and we have a little more in the balance on the balance sheet that we put into surplus or into capital reserve. So, to me, I think we're probably going to be a wash based on past history, just from the last 7 years. That will probably be a break even with your predictions, just as an observation. I predicted about a $3 million surplus last year and we got about a 5.
Well, I think by the end, I just looked last year in the final budget, it was 2.2. So I'm not sure the 4, I don't show 4 at any time. We were at a little over 3.7, but never at 4. So then at the end with COVID, obviously, remember all the transportation costs and we paid portion, but a lot of those costs we didn't have. Plus we took a premium holiday and benefits, which saved us over $1 million. So all of those items had a definite effect on what that balance would be. Right now, obviously, it's difficult with trying to predict what our expenditures is going to be moving forward. And I know I probably say this every year, the budget is tight. I mean, individuals that have been at the finance committee, you could see that we've looked at every salary, every benefit, what we're projecting forward, all the new positions. I mean, you were adding a full program, which you need to support. And those transportation costs, those addition, they're real. I mean, they're coming, they're actual. So those additional costs are something you have to consider. They're going to be spent.
I'll give you guys one pause. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and the charter school is real. I mean, we're going to pay an extra $1.5 million, and that into next year, it means like $3 million. That's an additional cost that we didn't experience before.
The only benefit I was going to say is just from a Western Center perspective, we did get over $100,000 back. So they have an $87,000 increase, which does at least put us $20,000 to the good. It's small, but it's something.
Perspective.
Yeah, so I don't want to give the impression that I'm a cheapskate or I don't want to beat anybody up on anything, but I'm just looking at numbers. I mean, the numbers are what they are. And so, I mean, if to plan properly, we definitely need to have a sharpened pencil for these things. There's been a swing of about $7 to $9 million between predicted deficit and actual end for the last 7 years. And this falls well within that same range for me. I mean, if I look at that as a trend, there's 7 dots on the same side of the line. So just my observation.
Okay, I don't think that's been every year, but we can debate that. But anyway, so, and again, remember we do a budget, it's as close as we can, but there's things we try to put in place to save money. When I do refundings, which we've done this year also, we save several $100,000. I mean, that's key. So refundings, trying to reduce benefit costs, not reduce benefits, but the cost. And then, like I said, taking the premium holiday, put in a number of items that saved money that would have been expended otherwise. But we can, we'll go over fund balance and where we are. It's important to remember where we are is what we have. I mean, doesn't matter what happened a year, 2 years, or 3 years ago. This is our actual dollars that are in the bank. So that's what we have to work with moving forward.
Okay, thanks. That's it for me for questions.
As well as no step this year. Excuse me, no step this year. In
Yes.
terms of that piece, it's 0.
Anybody else have questions? I still can't see everybody, so if you have a hand up, please, if somebody else can see, let me know. There we go. That helps. Okay, I don't see any more hands up, so thank you, Sandy. I appreciate that. And again, May 3rd, if you'd like to join in, we'll be further discussing.
Yeah, it's at 5:30, so that's a little different time for everyone else because there is a JOC meeting that day, that evening. So we're trying to do both, the 5:30 finance, and then probably the latest drop off at 6:45 for some that have the JOC. We'll keep meeting until we get it, and we'll be back definitely on May, I believe 13th for the preliminary approval as Sandy put out there. So any other feedback or questions from the board, please let us know so we can best prepare for the 3rd and continue our conversations.
Sounds good.
We will keep working on our end, and by that point, we'll have a little better handle. I can tell you preliminary, we have 3 students that are in charter that say they're coming back as of right now, based upon the survey that went out at 1 o'clock. So that's yep. So we're starting. There we go. So.
Yep. Okay, seeing no more questions, I guess we'll move on to public comments on action items. Do we have any comments?
We had no submitted comments.
Okay, do we have any hands raised? No? Okay. All right, we're going to move on to personnel. First, we have resignations.
Can I make a motion to approve the entire personnel report as provided?
I was
I'll
kind of
second
waiting for that. Okay, so we're moving all the way from, that's all of item 5. Any discussion?
I have one if no one else does. Maybe Georgie, if you could explain what does they resign their employment, like 3 and 4, Stephen Gale and Rachel Plank. It says they resigned their employment with the district on this date at the conclusion of the 2021 school year. So they're saying now that they're going to be here through June, or
Yes.
just okay.
Yeah, that's correct, Stephen. The wording.
I just want to make sure.
Yes, they resigned their position. Stephen Gale resigned on the 16th, letting us know that he will finish his employment with the district at the conclusion of the school year. Same with Rachel Plank.
Perfect. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Will we be sending out exit interviews to anybody leaving?
Already done. Alan. Yes,
Yep, Alan says no.
everyone was given the opportunity to either meet in person or they were sent an exit interview.
Excellent. Thank you, Georgie. All right, so is there any more discussion on the personnel report? If not, I'll say all in favor. Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, all approved. Thank you.
Melanie, if I could, I'd like to make a motion to for the action items. I'd like to approve action items A through D. It's a motion to approve the increase in the paraprofessional rate, motion to establish paraprofessional rate for Power Up Camp and Ready to Learn Camp, motion to approve the environmental services from TRC Environmental, and a motion to approve the recommendation from the Facilities Committee for the purchase and installation of the Hereford Kindergarten furniture from Corbett Inc. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thanks.
Okay, discussion. I have a quick comment on a letter D. We are in the right direction here on furniture expenditures, and it may even be just a little bit less. We're not sure yet. Maybe some soft furniture, some soft seating that we might not need.
I have
So-
a question about C.
Sure, go ahead.
This Giza project, I mean, did we find asbestos again or?
Okay, so I can answer that. There is a little bit left at the high school, and all of this has already been documented. So this is to abate what's left at the high school.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else have questions? Okay, I don't see any hands. All right, so we have first and a second for all of the action items A through D. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion's carry. All right, we'll move on to committee reports. First, we'll have Ms. McGinnis with Special Education and Pupil Services.
So Special Education and Pupil Service has not met since the last update at our last board workshop. We will be meeting on Monday, April 26th at 7 p.m. So everybody is welcome to join us then. But in the meantime, Dr. Drake had told me about some interesting information he had, and he'd like to share it with the board members and our Upper Perk School District families. So I'm actually going to just turn it over to Dr. Drake for him to just give a little information to everybody.
Thank you,
good.
Mrs. McGinnis. So I just wanted to let everybody become aware of something that we came across recently. There was a profile on WNEP TV about Knoebels Amusement Resort. For those who may or may not be familiar, it's about 2 hours from us. It's an amusement park, a walk the park type of thing, like a Great Adventure or something, but a little smaller scale, free admission. They had a profile on there about new special needs programs. So that's why I thought it would be interesting to share this. And, you know, as we have in our family, we have a person with special needs and they love Knoebels, and I hear the carousel music almost every day on YouTube. So it's near and dear to our heart, but I thought I would share it with other people as well. Knoebels Amusement Resort recently became a certified autism center. The designation is granted by an international credentialing and continuing education standards service. It requires 80% of the employees to have autism training, and the co-owner, Rick Knoebel, is shooting for 100% of employees being trained. They have a sensory-friendly comfort room, a place for children with sensory difficulties to take a break from the fun, food, and fantasy. It's really a great program that is something for those of families with special needs people. It's really a great service, because if you've ever gone to some of those parks that don't have those services, sometimes it's very difficult and extremely troubling for the individual. So I just wanted to let everybody know about that. And in addition to that, they are having an Autism Awareness Day on June 6th, where park goers can participate in special activities, and there'll be street fair with autism resources and scavenger hunt. So again, that's June 6th. And just wanted everybody to be aware of those special programs that are now available at that facility. And that's it for my little extra report into the Special Education Committee. Thank you, Ms. McGinnis.
Okay, so next would be Dr. Drake. We'll move on to curriculum and instruction. And thank you for the information. That's really great. That was really good.
Thank you. There was no meeting. That meeting is next Monday. So I have nothing to report on the curriculum committee at this time.
Okay, we'll move on to extracurricular with Ms. Pennepacker.
Thank you, Mrs. Cunningham. The Extracurricular Committee met on April 15th at 6:00 p.m. The invited guests for the meeting were Mrs. Michelle Burns, Middle School Yearbook Advisor, and Mr. Bobby Kurzweg, Athletic Director. Mrs. Burns shared a slide presentation about the members, assignments, and goals for the club, the Yearbook Club, focus on student photography to support the yearbook. This year, due to it being virtual, the number of students involved is less, but there are still students involved this year. Students work with other teachers for student artwork. Students help out with various pages. They use activities and various prompts to capture quotes, prompts, superlatives from the student body to include in the yearbook. They also incorporate club photos, sports, arts, and music, normal school life, and celebrations. They include both the in-person and virtual students. Virtual students can upload pictures for consideration to be included in the yearbook. This year, the cost of the yearbook will be $20 plus tax, and orders can be placed online through Christmas City. Mr. Kurzweg presented a spring sports update. He reported that spring sports is going well. He expressed that the coaches and student athletes are performing like rock stars. His words, rock stars. Coaches and student athletes are doing very well. Antigen testing is going well. Masks are going well with relatively no issues. Student athletes are finding a way to distance themselves and take mask breaks and still be in compliance. The PIAA and District 1 are looking to have a normal championship this season, later this spring. There's still work to be done on the fields, and everyone is working hard to improve and maintain the fields for the remainder of the season. There was also some conversation about the outdoor basketball courts across Walt Road. Mr. Hipser made a request to have the district investigate how to get the courts into playable condition with possible support from the community. What are the basic costs for resurfacing, replacing the rims and nets and the lights? Mr. Kurzweg will collaborate with Mr. Kenwood on the potential costs of this project. Mr. Kurzweg also reported that this was the first season for girls indoor track with 19 student athletes. However, competition was limited due to the weather and lack of indoor venues for competitions. The next extracurricular committee meeting will be scheduled for May 20th at 6:00, and our anticipated invited guests will be the high school yearbook advisors. This concludes the extracurricular committee report. Thank you, Mrs. Cunningham.
Thank you, Ms. Pennepacker. So I'm up next with facilities committee. I already told you that we may have less of a cost for our full day K furniture and fixtures, although we just said that we would be good with going ahead and ordering the casework for it, because that has a really, excuse me, really long lead time. So we did approve that. And let's see, today there was a Giza construction meeting, and the chiller at the high school is just about finished. I did talk to Mr. Kenwood, and he said he was hoping that soon we'd be able to the board would be able to take a look, go over and see what our dollars have wrought. And I think we're still waiting for a backup pump, or we just got it and they haven't installed it yet. So we're getting there. The new lighting repairs have been delayed. That's the outdoor lighting. Phase 1B, I will tell you, so far I haven't gotten an exact price, but from the beginning looks of it, it came in really high. So we'll be continuing to work on that. Let's see, the samples of the classroom lighting were put in the different, in like in one room in each area, so everybody could take a look. There was good feedback from that. That should be happening soon. The Kiwanis, we talked about them using our fields, our baseball fields, and do believe we'll be good with that. Marlboro Playground, we're going to have a ribbon cutting ceremony sometime. There's one part, from what I understand, there's one part delayed, and I don't know if anyone else has any building projects or anything, but everything's really expensive and everything's really delayed. So as soon as we have that information, the board will get it and we will have a ribbon cutting, I promise. In other areas, Peg talked about the basketball courts that Dana and I've been talking about. So we'll continue to work on that. Soon we'll have some more exterior cameras coming. Hereford, 17 or 18 of them actually. And I don't know if anybody's been past Marlboro Elementary, but all the trees are gone out front. So hopefully it looks crazy out there. So hopefully we'll find a way to, I was talking to Mike Elliott, maybe we can talk to some of our environmental club, and maybe we can work on getting some things replaced in there so it doesn't look so bare. Next, the high school is going to be the primary voting location for Red Hill this year, just so you know. And our next meeting, like we said, after extracurricular would be May 20th at 7 p.m. I think I got everything in. If not, I'll catch it
Ms.
next
Cunningham, if I could real quick.
Sure.
Ms. Cunningham, if I could just to mention, I know you mentioned it about Marlboro, but that we did put out, I think what our previous meeting that tomorrow was going to be the ribbon cutting. So I see Bradley's on the call and want to make sure that everyone knows. And our PTFS at Marlboro, I know Dr. McCourt followed up to let them know that we had to postpone that. We don't have a date yet because we've been doing the last 3 Fridays in hopes. But just to clarify, there's no ceremony tomorrow at Marlboro. Mr. Kenwood and I are going to go test the slides out again, but we are still waiting for that part to officially open that up for everyone as we're down there. Once we have it, we'll publicize it and get it out there. But until we have it, we'll just kind of hold off. But I know we just want to see the joy of the kids running out there and having at it. So just want to clarify that. Yep.
That'd be great. I drove by and it looks great from the outside. So we'll hopefully get that last piece of the puzzle, I believe, involves some cement and some cement curing time. So that's why we can't do it yet. Anyway, that concludes, unless anyone has any questions, that concludes my facilities meeting or update. I don't see any hands going. All right, so I'll move on to finance. And of course, we just had our budget presentation. So we did have 2 budget meetings, April 6th and April 19th, with the next one being May 3rd at 5:30. I don't know that there's a lot I can say. I know my own personal opinion is I don't want to cut anything and I don't want to raise taxes. So that's where I'm going with that. And Sandy's shaking her head at me and I know she doesn't like that, but I just felt the need to put my own opinion out. I really, we just had the presentation, so I don't really have a lot to say otherwise. If anybody has any questions? Seeing no hands up, that concludes my report for finance. And next we'll move on to policy with Ms. Pennypacker.
Thank you, Mrs. Cunningham. The policy committee met this past Monday, the 19th at 7 p.m. The committee continues to meticulously move through the 200 level policies relative to pupils or students. The meeting was dedicated to an in-depth discussion around policy number 214, class rank. District administration, high school administration, school board members, and community members were present to contribute to the conversation. The policy committee requested the administration to make some adjustments to the policy, including a revision of the purpose statement. The policy committee approved policy 214 with revisions to be moved to the full board for a first read. At this time, I'll defer to Dr. Farina for any additional comments that I may have omitted or anything she'd like to add.
No, I think that my intention is to make those revisions and send them out to the school board tomorrow, so you can see what language is embedded there well in advance of the first read, as there are sentiments and differing opinions on all sides of this policy. So, you know, I'm happy to answer any questions in the interim, and thank all of our community members who came out and who shared emails with us regarding their opinion around class rank, because the change or the recommended change does have, you know, some collateral to it in the form of valedictorian and salutatorian. So if you have any questions, Peg and I are always available to answer them.
Thank
Is
you.
that meeting recorded?
So we do not post policy video, but we will share the minutes.
Any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Farina. The policy committee will be continue to exercise care and patience as we continue to work through all policy revisions. Policy development is an extremely important function of any school board, and the policy committee wants to ensure that policies are vetted appropriately and adequately. The next policy committee meeting is scheduled for May 17th at 6 p.m. This concludes the policy committee report.
Thank you, Ms. Pennypacker. I want to go back to facilities just for a second, because I think we're going to have an extra meeting. It's either going to be Thursday, May 6th or Monday, May 10th. So you might want to keep an eye out for that. And we will be talking about the Giza Phase 1B. And we should have a presentation from ICS, Provident, probably Noresco as well. So I just wanted to mention that. We'll move on to Western Montgomery Career and Technology Center. Mr. Cunningham.
So thank you, Melanie. The Western Center, we had our meeting we had our meeting on the 12th of April this month, not the first week. They have gone through the NOCDs, the written part. Now we'll be moving on to the actual hands-on part of the NOCD. I think we've had over 400 applications for next year, and there's only 300 seats to fill. So they're currently working on how that's going to go. We're working on a feasibility study for the building and making sure that everything's on the right maintenance schedule for 10-year projections. We also I think at our next meeting is when we're going to finalize our budget. We did not at this meeting because Donna was not available to speak at the time. It was a short meeting. It was a good meeting. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Cunningham. We'll move on to Montgomery County Intermediate Unit, Ms. McGinnis.
Thank you, Mrs. Cunningham. The IU has not had our monthly board meeting yet. It is next Wednesday, April 28th, so I have no report.
Okay, well, thank you. So I will move back to Ms. Pennypacker with the Legislative Liaison report.
Thank you, Mrs. Cunningham. The Montgomery County School District's Legislative Committee met last night at 7 o'clock virtually. There are a lot of things happening legislatively, so we got to keep an eye on some of these things, so fasten your seatbelts. At the federal level, on April 9th, President Biden released his fiscal year 2022 budget proposal. The proposal seeks a 40.8% increase from last year's U.S. Department of Education's budget. Investments in early education and K-12 education include the following. Title I, the budget proposes a $36.5 billion investment in Title I grants. Special education, the spending proposal said it would be the first step in fully funding IDEA. There is also funding for early intervention services for infants and toddlers with disabilities or delays, and would help expand early intervention access to underserved young children, including children of color and children from low-income families. Student well-being and wraparound services. The budget proposes funding to help schools hire more counselors, nurses, and mental health professionals. Early childhood education and care. The administration seeks to expand access to quality, affordable childcare for families relative to the Child Care and Development Block Grant, as well as funding for Head Start, preparing more young children for kindergarten. Statewide, there are internal discussions occurring regarding the state budget with some hope hoping to get the budget passed well before the June 30th deadline. The majority leaders are looking for an education funding increase similar to that provided in the 2020-2021 budget. Of great concern is that legislators are referring to the federal stimulus dollars as a reason for not looking to provide meaningful education increases. On Tuesday, the Senate passed Senate Bill 381, which would make permanent the provisions of Act 86 of 2016, set to expire June 30th. The act created an opportunity for prospective educators to serve as substitute teachers for a limited time by allowing schools, intermediate units, and area career and technical schools with the option to utilize individuals training to be teachers to serve as a substitute teacher, provided the individual has valid clearances and at least 60 credit hours. Also on Tuesday, the Senate unanimously passed Senate Bill 248, which designates March 6th each year as Persian Gulf War Veterans Day and October 7th of each year as Global War on Terrorism Veterans Day, and encourages, not mandates, all public schools and educational institutions to serve or to observe these special days by conducting exercises recognizing the contributions and sacrifices made by these veterans. On Monday, the House Education Committee approved House Bill 358, which allows charter schools, regional charter schools, cyber charter schools, and career technical schools to offer dual enrollment programs to their students, as do school districts under current law. Also on Monday, the House Education Committee approved House Bill 1041 that requires, beginning January 1st of 2022, that the school district of residence must permit homeschooled students to participate in any co-curricular activity that merges extracurricular activities with a required academic class, including but not limited to band and orchestra. Districts must also permit homeschool students to take up to 4 academic courses at a time if the student meets certain established criteria. The bill also requires that districts permit homeschool students to participate in a career and technical education program on the same basis as other students enrolled in the school district if the child meets certain established criteria. On Monday, the Public School Employees Retirement System, PESERS board voted to increase the school employees' contributions to the fund. The increases will take effect in July and last for 3 years. This move by the board is a shift from its previous position after it was determined that the fund's executives reported inflated investment results. The governor's office has scheduled press conferences in the eastern, central, and western regions of the state regarding the need to support the governor's charter reform plan set forth in House Bill 272. PDE is in full support of this proposed plan, and PDE has renewed its efforts to develop regulations concerning charter school reform within the parameters they are allowed. The plan is to get it moving into the regulatory review process this summer and soliciting public comment. However, any proposed regulations would have to go to the House Education Committee for approval or disapproval, and that could be very problematic. The pressure's not there. It's been disappointing. Some fixes, but not what we need to be substantive change. If any school board members would like more information about these and other legislative matters, please feel free to contact me. And if there are no questions, this concludes the legislative liaison report.
Anyone have any questions? That was a lot. Boy, there is a lot going on.
I'm telling you, it's churning, it's cooking.
Yeah. I see Keith, and then I see Judy.
Would you happen to have like a email that you could throw out with links to those articles or anything? Do you have something like that already prepared, or is that something you have to put together?
I can send you the information I get from the committee.
Just forward stuff on to me, sure.
Yeah, before we have the meeting, they send out an email. I can send you that.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead, Judy.
I was just fidgeting. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Thought your hand went up.
Yeah, I
Okay,
was just kind of like playing with my hair and stuff. I apologize.
all good. All good. Okay, Mike, do you have anything? I saw your box light up there.
As a matter of fact, I do. If I can share this. Anybody see that?
Yep,
All right, cool. So the
Yeah.
Upper Perk Education Foundation. No.
I said good job.
Oh. Trying to do it from my phone, so I was hopeful that I made it up. So what that is that is the yard sign that the Upper Perk Education Foundation is going to be giving to seniors. Every senior is going to get one. And if parents want to join in, they can help. They can buy signs. If you go to Upper Perk Education Foundation on Facebook, if you go to the pinned post, there is a link to our UP Strong store where you can get yard signs and banners. You can even get class signs. Like if you're proud of your kid for, graduating 7th grade, you can get them a sign. So it's pretty cool. There is some neat stuff there, and we're always looking for sponsors, people that want to help support the class of 2021. So again, all that information is on our Facebook page or the website. So thank you very much.
Okay, so I'm assuming that was your Ed Foundation update. That was good.
Yes. I just
Okay.
kind of rolled right into the commercial. So there you
That
go.
was good. That was good. Okay, and last we'll talk about regional planning with Dr. Drake.
There has been no meeting. I believe it will be scheduled for next week. So
Okay.
I would yield my time back to Mrs. Pennypacker for all the legislative liaison. It's lucky the timing was good that most of these committees didn't yet meet. So anyway, but there's nothing to report on the Regional Planning Commission.
Okay, all right. So then we'll move, if no one has questions, we'll move on to public comments. Do we have any public comments?
We do. We have Jennifer Hartzell.
Okay.
Hi, Jennifer. Please remind us of your full name and township of residence.
Can you hear me?
We can
Yeah.
hear you, Jennifer.
Okay. Jennifer Hartzell, East Greenville. My question, I just have one question for Peg about the legislative liaison report. What was the bill number for the cyber schools to be included with the tech schools? You were given a lot of information and I got a hand cramp and I finished writing the rest of my notes.
Happens to me all the time. 1 second, please. Let me
Was
find
it
out.
272? HB 272 is the charter school one? 1040.
I couldn't finish writing any of my notes because my hand cramped up and she was speaking so fast and I hope I can read this.
Yeah. House Bill 358
Oh, okay. Yep.
is
that
the
one.
one that's the dual enrollment. Is that the one you were referring to?
You'd said something about cyber charter schools, and there was like 2 other ones, but there's still a cyber school to be included with tech school dual enrollment like Upper Perk is.
Yeah, that's 358.
358. Okay, thank you very much.
Yep, you bet.
That's all.
Oh, okay, thanks, Jen. Anyone else?
We have one more comment. It's Deb Burns.
Okay.
Hi, Deb. Can you hear us?
Teacher at Upper Perk Yeoman High School. Somebody asked me to come look at this and follow up. So I normally don't come to a workshop, but do have a question for Dr. Drake. If the information that he had said about the Knobles, if that could be sent out to the teachers, to the faculty, the community, somewhere to be put on, I think that is something that would be, just not available to the people who are on this, watching this thing. I think that would be something that would be really nice to be able to share out to the community. I'm not a special ed teacher, but I think that would be really something, wonderful that we could put out to the community. That's all I was going to ask, if he could possibly put that information out to the community somehow, some way.
Sure, I could respond to that. Mr. Thrush already has that information. He got it actually the same time I did. So, but I'll certainly follow up with anybody. Mrs. Burns, if you could email me to my UPSD email, I'll send it to you and you could distribute it however you'd like.
Well, I was wondering if we could possibly put it through the community page that Dr. Roach puts out weekly, the Friday night long emails.
They're nice emails.
No. I'm just saying it's a lot of information, but I thought that would be something that would be really wonderful for the communities that's out there that, whether they have relatives. It would be just something nice to be put out to the community, not just to me, but, to everybody.
You mean
That's
the
all.
Friday? You mean the Friday night informative emails?
That's it, the long ones. The ones that I look forward to at like 7:30 and read. What did I miss?
Glad to take up your Friday night. Glad.
I'm just asking if it could be included in that. I think it's very informative. I was like, hey, I learned something at one of these meetings. I'm glad.
Well, it's about time.
Well, at least my 7 years of investment have paid off. And
There you go.
yeah, I'll forward it on to Dr. Roach and to Mrs. Gum. And
I just think it would be something really nice to share out with everybody.
Okay.
Yep. Good stuff.
Thanks, Deb.
Thank you. Thanks for the feedback.
You're welcome.
Do we have any others?
We do not.
Okay. Well, I'll move us on to board comments. Any board members have any comments?
Just
Okay.
real quick. What?
Go ahead.
I don't know if I did. I don't know if I interrupted anybody. Sorry if I did.
You didn't.
Okay, good. All right. Number one, I think it's great. We're going to be able to work with Kiwanis. I think that's awesome. Two, I think it's great that we're taking a look at those basketball courts because they are in some serious need of some serious love. And three, to Deb's point, yeah, who doesn't love Knoebels? So thanks for sharing that, Carrie.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
I've never been there.
I've never been there either. And I guess that's why
What?
They have a great campground too. So, yep.
That's why we've never been there.
And I'm not a paid spokesman, just so you're aware.
Anyone else have any comments?
Madam President, just really quick as an update, in a prior solicitor's report, I had mentioned the case of BL versus Mahanoy Area School District.
Yes.
A case before the Supreme Court. If anyone's interested, this week coming up, the Supreme Court will hear arguments in that case. It's Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock a.m. I believe that C-SPAN, for everyone whose favorite channel is C-SPAN, will be streaming that. I think through their website, they have a live stream of U.S. Supreme Court arguments. So again, it's a case that could have significant impact regarding the authority of schools to impose any discipline or consequences for student speech that occurs off campus, primarily online. And it could dramatically impact the school district. The Pennsylvania School Boards Association has entered arguments in the case, as well as the National School Boards Association, National Administrators Associations, National Teachers Union. So there are a lot of interested parties. So if you have time available and want to hear the lawyers argue the case and hear the questions from the Supreme Court justices, it's Wednesday, April 28th at 10 a.m. Thanks.
Thank you, Kyle. That's very informative. We all love C-SPAN. Any other comments, board comments? Seeing none, I would. I'm sorry.
I just have a really quick one.
Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to make sure I didn't leave a negative impression with asking all those questions on the budget. For me, the reason I ran for the board in the first place was because we were cutting a lot of programs because at that time what we were heard was that we had serious deficits. And so when I look at what we've done over the last 7 years, I think we've changed a lot of our culture and moving things in the right direction. But we just talked about the chiller, for example, today, right? That was something that wasn't replaced because what we were told, even before I was on the board, was that we didn't have the money, we had a large deficit. And yet then eventually it had a catastrophic failure where we had to basically close and shut down. Everybody probably remembers some of our school uniforms with the numbers falling off of them and all. And that was one where we were said we didn't have the revenue or resources for it. So what's really important is if we need things, we need them, and we should know that we need them, and we should have an accurate fiscal accounting of knowing if we're going to have a deficit or a surplus. That's my only point there. I really hope that we could drive towards pretty accurate. I know 0 is not a good target because you always need to have some safety factor, but really having accurate numbers helps you with planning and also helps you with prioritizing what really needs to be done. It's easy to see a chiller when it breaks down, or a uniform with the numbers falling off, or, you know, a basketball court that needs repair. But what you don't see is sometimes the textbooks or the curriculum or these other kind of things. They're equally as important, if not more important. So that's why I'm just want to make sure that we have good, accurate forecasts for our budgets. That's my, you know, a little bit of an explanation of why I was asking all those questions. Plus, I'm a scientist and I probably asked too many questions too. So, but that's another story.
It's all good. That's what we love about you, Carrie.
Right. Thanks.
Thanks, Carrie. Anyone else? If
I'll
not,
make a motion to adjourn.
thank you.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Have a good night, everyone.
Yep, have a good night. Yep.